Ladies, are you experiencing the second half of your life like me? You're going to want to stay tuned because we have a guest speaker that's going to share how you can maneuver this season of life and finish your race strong. Okay, Dawn, we know that you have a coaching ministry, so let's talk about that and how you use that to help women in this season of life, the midlife season.
Well, yeah, it's an honor to have the opportunity to bring women together. So yes, I do coaching. It's life coaching, leadership coaching, but and also like spiritual formation.
Mhm.
But one of the things that God's really put on my heart is what does that look like to really be able to support women that are navigating midlife transitions? And so
Mm.
we all know that midlife it comes with a lot of transitions, and you got some of the ones that are classic like empty nest. A lot of women do, their children are
Mhm.
off and gone, or maybe they're in the home but they're grown and they don't need them anymore. And women
Mhm.
are often like, well, who am I if I'm not needed in my child's life in that same capacity? But there's also a lot of other things that take place. Of course, there's menopause itself, peri and post, which
Mhm.
is very big, being just talked about, and there's a lot to talk about and unpack there. But there's also a lot of other changes. Sometimes women, you get into your 40s or your 50s, and so you start to think, well, maybe God's shifting what you're going, maybe even like what you're going to do occupationally. Yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes we get into a job for a season and it begins to pay the bills. But there was always another dream, maybe deeper inside of us that we never got to
Mhm.
pursue because we're being responsible. You're being a mama, or you're just really, you were building something and it was good. It was not like there was anything bad, but there's a shift that's happening inside. And there could also be changes in opportunities at church, or unfortunately, there's a lot of marriages that dissolve when
Mhm.
men and women are in their 40s and 50s. And so there's just a lot of change. And so one of the things I focus on is that age group and how do I support women in this navigation? And
Mhm.
so I call it a second becoming.
Mhm.
And the reason I call it that has a lot to do with just even what I experienced. Um, Probably it started probably a little bit 10 years ago, but especially 8 years ago. I just felt I was in my early 50s and I had felt unsettled. And I knew there
Mhm.
was change, but I'd been on staff at the same church for 33 years. It was a
Wow.
long time. There was a lot of change that was taking place. And I just knew God was shifting me. And as I went to the Lord in prayer, some of the opportunities I had been getting, I wasn't getting anymore. And I was like, God, what is this? And the Lord told me He was putting me into a season of is of confinement, not isolation. There would be
Mhm.
people around, but confinement. And the more I prayed about it, He said, it's a cocoon. I'm putting you into a
Mhm.
cocoon. And I don't know. I mean, so when I think of cocoon initially, I would think second grade science, right? Like a
Mhm.
cocoon, that's really cool. Caterpillar spins a cocoon, and technically a moth comes out, but I don't know how to say the other word, chrysalis or whatever it is for butterfly. So I just say a butterfly comes out. And it sounds so clean, but I got curious. Like what actually happens in a cocoon? And
Mhm.
so in my quiet times, I began to research, and I honestly was like almost horrified at what happens inside a cocoon because it's
Mhm.
not so clean.
Mhm.
And what happens is that the caterpillar literally releases an enzyme that begins to dissolve its own body inside this cocoon. And
Wow.
as the body is dissolving, it's being liquefied, there are some cells that have been in the cocoon its entire or in the caterpillar its entire life. And these cells have been kept in an immature state until this moment. And at this moment, as the body's liquefying, those parts don't liquefy. They begin to grow, and the fuel that grows them is the liquefied body of who the caterpillar used to be.
Wow.
And as I sat in that and thought about that, and I thought about if a caterpillar could talk, we have to remember like it has no context for what's happening, right? I mean, it would be like my legs are going away. So, and I could just imagine the Lord having a conversation with the caterpillar, and the caterpillar's like, my legs are going away. And the Lord's like, you're not going to need those. The caterpillar's like, how am I going to walk? Because all it's ever known is walking and crawling under leaves on the ground, right? And
Mhm.
the Lord's like, you're not going to need them. You're going to fly. But there's no context what flying is. And
Mhm.
that's how I felt in this cocoon. That's how I felt in this season of transition. Who am I if I'm not speaking on this platform, or if I don't have this role or this authority? Who am I? And the Lord's like, don't worry, you're not going to need that anymore. And as that's liquefying, there was something more inside of me that was coming alive. And I've always had this huge love. I love coaching. I have a huge love for the outdoors,
Hmm.
and all of that. And what was growing inside of me were the seeds of what I now get to live in this season of having this coaching business where I'm coaching women and I'm taking them outdoors to encounter God in wild places. I take them on these adventures and I have conversations with them about their own journey in the
Hmm.
cocoon. But that cocoon space is uncomfortable and you have to just be patient. And I would think, I'm out of the cocoon. I wasn't out of the cocoon. I was in the cocoon for a long time. But we have to be patient and see who God's developing within us. So that's sort of what lies behind my coaching. Call it a ministry. It is a business, but it's a faith-based business. So I see my business as a ministry.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I can just imagine the cocoon because we've all been in those seasons, right? Even myself, I retired 3 years ago from banking. And I remember when I first retired, I was kind of lost for like a little while, like, what am I going to do? I'm still young enough to where I have much to offer. So where do you go? What do you do with this? So I love what you said because I felt like, well, I didn't call it a cocoon. I called it a wilderness. Like, where do I go in the wilderness? It's like dry. There's no water here.
Yes.
And God, where have you taken me? Maybe I should have stayed working for a little bit longer. And it was painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was painful. And so, to be honest, I mean, so listen to, I think the women are going to be asking the same question that I'm asking. How do you get through that painful season? Because there's going to be women that are in that cocoon that you're talking about right now that's listening. So let's talk about, because that's not just an easy
No.
time. That's a really difficult time. So share how you got through that, Dawn. How did you
Yeah.
get through that cocoon time?
Yes. Yeah, it was like, when I was talking initially saying, it was not isolation. And I think that was key. I had a couple of close relationships with other
Hmm.
women that I could talk about, but I didn't have a vocabulary for how I was feeling. And that's very common in this season of
Hmm.
transition. But I could just be me with these friends and they would let me process. And I
Mm.
think having a couple of sisters in the Lord, right, that you can connect with and process with. And so I would go on some, particularly one friend where we go on long hikes. And
Yeah.
so it was just the perfect setting to be able to talk and, um, and just talk freely. And then the other things too were the Lord brought into my life around 2015, 2016, when I started reading Emotionally Healthy Spirituality was a
Hmm.
key book during this whole season. It sort of was the linchpin that launched all of this. But I
Hmm.
began to get into more practicing some of the contemplative practices like
Hmm.
silence and solitude and stillness, which
Hmm.
stillness is the one that I don't like the most and the one that I need the most. And
Probably match that.
so I think learning how to be still and
Hmm.
just be with in the presence of the Father. And so contemplative prayer life really began to grow and experience God's grace. I didn't realize how addicted I was to performance. My identity
Hmm.
was so caught up
Hmm.
in performance. And so the Lord really took me through a healing season because
Hmm.
if I'm not preaching on a platform like I was, then who am I? That's a big identity crisis. And so I
Hmm.
needed to really, and I knew intellectually and spiritually, I knew my identity is in Christ, but how I was living, I didn't realize I'd gotten so many attachments to
Hmm.
the performance space. And as I got into contemplative literature, they talked about the three addictions that we all have. One tends to be stronger than the others, and that's either I am what I do, I am what I have, or I am what other people say or think about me.
Hmm.
And so it was really spending time processing with Jesus, getting set free from that addiction to performance, getting off the hamster wheel, because that's what that was. I was always having to
Hmm.
perform, and getting underneath that, realizing I had a need to be valued in people's lives
Hmm.
because of abandonment issues from my childhood. So it
Hmm.
really, a lot of the healing was going in and providing space, which God provided for me because He put me in confinement
Hmm.
to actually do some deep work and allow his spirit to come in and bring some healing to those abandonment issues, which was really a beautiful season.
That's good. And I can understand that. I can relate to that because what God revealed to me during that time when I came out on the other side was that I also had those issues of rejection. Mine was rejection, the feeling of being rejected, and so I had to deal with that because when I got rejected from people right after I retired, I took it personal because
Yes.
of the childhood hurt, and so I had to
Yes.
go back and look at that and say, you know what, this is on me,
Yes.
because I'm allowing, either words or actions to affect me in a way that's not at all what God would want. That's more what the enemy would want. He'd want to take us out, not God actually making us into that beautiful butterfly. And then I
Mhm.
also learned too, and I'm glad you said this because I had
Yeah.
idols of what people thought about me,
Yeah.
and so that was a big idol, and I was given permission to people to speak into me that really shouldn't have had permission. So, I mean, you know how you learn these things.
Yep.
So you've gotten through the cocoon part. So tell us a little bit about how did God just when you became this butterfly? I mean, how cool is that? So let's get to that part of what God did after that time of waiting.
Yeah. So during that season is when I finally had the courage to resign from my position because I
Wow.
felt safe in the position in that I had a salary. I was well taken care of. I had good insurance. Insurance is expensive, right? But and I didn't know exactly what things were going to look like on the other side. I felt like I was on a trapeze swinging, and the Lord was like, "Let go," but I couldn't see the bar coming towards me. But I just had to trust Him, and I had done some coursework for coaching. And so it's like, you know what? It's time to launch out and let's just go for it. And so I launched this business and it's faith-based, but I mean, it is a business and it's Don Jackson Coaching and Wayfaring Adventures. And I just began to let's just go and trust Jesus. And the Lord has provided for me financially to be able to because to launch a business in your late 50s is like, whoo, and I'm not married. I don't have a second income that I'm depending on in this family. I have a dog. He eats a lot. He doesn't provide any funds. He's at my feet right now. But anyway, so it was, but I would never go back. And I remember I had the opportunity because I did take on for a little season a part-time job at my new church. And they
Mm-hmm.
offered me something more as well. And the Lord told me, like, Dawn, if you want to take that, where I could have been back full-time ministry in a very respected position, and a great church that I love. And the Lord told me, you can do that if you like, but that's the safe way. If you want to live by faith, then I want you to trust me and
Mm-hmm.
go this route. And so I decided that I'm going to trust him. I'm going to go this route. And so I'm still a teaching pastor at that church whenever they call on me to teach, but I don't go to any meetings. This is like a glorious thing when you've been in meetings for 33 years to not have to be in anybody's meeting. It's amazing. I love it. And I love my church and I totally believe in the local church. But the Lord was like, no, this season I'm calling you to do ministry in a different way.
Oh,
And
that's good.
so it's been, and I'm coaching with Propel.
Mhm.
I just get incredible opportunities. It's never dull. God's faithful. And I wouldn't change it for anything. So it's fun to be on
That's
this
so
other
good.
side.
Yeah, that is. That's really good. And I love what you said. It's not, I mean, I love that you said, do you want to go all in? Because, even with me, when I kind of let some of those things go and said, okay, I'm not gonna serve in these capacities anymore. But I still hung on to a few little things, because I didn't want to let all of it go. And just recently he told me, he said, no, I need you to let it all go.
Isn't
You
he
know,
gentle? He's so good with us because at least he's gentle, peeling back one
I'm
finger
like,
at a time.
but you just want to have your foot kind of still in the door, but not all the way in the door, just a little bit in the door. It just feels safe. And I love that you said that word because it does. It feels safe. But I remember when I was talking and I was doing some things in the church in our church and then my pastor's wife, I met with her and I said, I got this idea. This is what I think I'm going to do. And she said, Trisha, this is great. This is something you can do. And she said, and the church supports it 100%, and go out on mission. When you like what you're doing is you're stepping out, you're actually doing mission work. You're actually doing the commission. So when we stay in the church and it's safe and it's, I think for me, and I think church is wonderful. And I think anybody that wants to work for the church and that is working for the church, please continue to do that work. It needs to be done. But when God calls you, and He will, He
Yeah.
might, He might call you outside to go on commission, which is what it sounds like He did for you. So how are you using that commission to build the kingdom in your business?
Well, my passion with this is to see women who are hitting midlife, whatever midlife is. I mean, right? I mean, and I'm never one that would ever want to say I'm middle aged, but the reality is I'm 59. If I'm not middle aged, what is that, right? But just because there's this negative connotation in society for women, oftentimes that you're done, you're washed up, and we're not. And so part of my passion is really through my business and the mission there to see women come alive to God who God has
Mhm.
made them to be for this second season of their life, this second becoming, because
Mhm.
we need the women sages to rise up. We
Mhm.
need, oftentimes, we're the one with the financial resources, the time. There's a
Mhm.
lot we can do in building the kingdom of God, even in non-traditional ways. And
Mhm.
so there's so much to be done out there. And the younger women, I know I mentor a young pastor from my church, a young female pastor. They're looking for women that will also pour into them. There's so
Mhm.
much we can do in building the kingdom. And then part of that passion also that I get to do, I'll throw this in here. I know we're getting probably towards the end, but I get to take women into the out, like not just on monthly hikes, but into the big outdoors. Like I've got 8 women I'm taking into the Grand Canyon in 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Um, we're backpacking for 4 days in the Grand Canyon, and we're going to encounter God in the wilderness, literal wilderness. But those types of experiences are transformational. And
Mhm.
so, and I come alive outside. That's part of who I am. That's part of what had been kept
Mhm.
small in my life because I couldn't express it with all my responsibilities I had prior to my resignation from my previous job. But now it gets to be expressed all the time. It's really come alive. And so, yeah, I want to see women come alive. I want to see them flourish. And I think they need a little adventure, and you can find that outside. So.
Absolutely. What about people that are afraid of heights like me?
You don't have to go on a high thing. You can do something. We can hike low. It's okay. You can do river rafting. I've got a river. I've got 16 women. We're taking river rafting in June up in NorCal. So
Oh my gosh, how fun is that? And I love the nature too. I'm an outdoor person, so I get it. Like I've shared with you before, I trained for marathons for just years and actually coached new little newbies to run their very first marathon, which is cool to see
yes,
them cross the finish line after working so hard for it.
yes,
And so outdoors it really is a change. It changes you. It takes away the makeup and all the walls
yes,
you've built up. It just takes everything away and you can just be you.
yes.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
We're not wearing makeup in the canyon. We're not washing our hair in the canyon. These girls are wearing the same clothes every day in the canyon because whatever you carry, you got to carry out of the canyon. So you want to keep it light. So yeah, it's transformational in so many ways.
I know it's nice and yucky, stinky. It's just great. It's just
Yes,
great. Women like it too. Women can get in there too. So
absolutely.
awesome. So how would people hear about how to get in touch with you on how to join one of these adventures? Because I think that's so spiritual. I think when you go outside and you're in the presence of the Lord and you're looking at just the beauty of what He's created, like the Grand Canyon, wow. I mean, it's a sight to behold and to actually be on the ground and experience it. I think that would really a lot of women would want to be a part of that, especially here from Texas. We like that kind of stuff. So, how would they get connected to you, Dawn?
Yeah. Two key ways. One is you can go directly to the website, which is dawnjacksoncoaching.com.
Hmm.
Or you can find me on Instagram, run Dawn Jackson. And you'll find me there. And yeah, reach out, come join us. I actually do have, I mean, I could add one more boat to that rafting trip. I don't know. By the time this comes out, it might be too late for that. But yeah, people, if women are interested, just let me know.
And I also know you have a book coming out, so let's mention that
Oh,
before we
yes.
say goodbye.
Yes,
Hey,
yes.
talk about the new book that is about to come out.
Yes, I have an 8 week devotional coming out called Encounter, and it's all about encountering and making space for encountering God, and then encountering the Father, yourself, the cross. Like it walks you through. It's all about going from strength to strength. Alongside of that is a companion volume that's coming out with it that is encountering God in wild spaces, and it has specific hikes that you can do along with what's happening in the Encounter devotional, but they're very specific to my region, to San Gabriel Mountains, with
Mhm.
the idea that I'd build some others out, maybe for the Sierra and Orange County and things like that. I don't know about Texas, but hey, who knows? Yeah, but that book is coming out. Those books are coming out in May.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so I will make sure that the listeners know where to get those books and how to connect with you. Don, thank you
Awesome.
so much. I love the cocoon. That is very interesting, and I think that we all go through seasons of that. And I love that you spoke to the women in the second half because that's where I'm at. And so, and we're not done yet. God still has a plan and He has a purpose for us, and we need to step up and do what God has called us to do. And I agree with you. I think we need to pour back into the next generation. We've got to
Yep.
pass the baton well and finish our race strong. And I know
Yes.
we agree with that. So,
Amen to that. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is fun.
oh no, I Hello, friends. I just want to take a moment and thank you for joining us today with Ministry with Coffee. We're so glad that you're here. And I want to ask that if this has moved you or encouraged you, the story that you just listened to today, that you would like our page and that you would share our page with your friends and your family. Together, if we work together, we can share the gospel of Jesus throughout the world at one cup, one story at a time. Thank you again for your support. We are so glad that you have chosen to minister and partner with us. Thank you again.